When police searched this house, they couldn't believe what was inside the basement. It was just an ordinary day in the small town of Apple Valley, but everything changed when the police received a mysterious phone call. The caller told them that there were bodies in the basement of a house on Willow Street. At first, the cops thought it was a prank call, but then they found out that it wasn't, and they were shocked by what they found. You won't believe this unbelievable story, so make sure to watch until the end. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more updates. Willow Street was one of those streets where everyone knew everyone else. It was the type of place where kids could play outside without any adult supervision. The houses were close together, and the neighbors looked after each other's children. In fact, everyone on Willow Street felt safe and at peace. That is, until the police showed up. It all started when the police received a phone call from a woman who claimed she had seen something terrible. She said she had seen someone being dragged into the basement of a house, and no one had come out since. The police weren't sure what to believe, so they decided to investigate. When they arrived at the house, they knocked on the door, but no one answered. The officers decided to search the property, and that's when they noticed something strange. The basement window was covered with a tarp, which seemed odd to the police. Why would anyone cover up their basement window? As they investigated further, they found some tire tracks that led away from the house. The police followed the tracks, and they eventually stopped in front of a large barn. The police were now more suspicious than ever. Why would someone drag a body to a barn? And what was the connection between the two places? To find out what was going on, the police decided to search the barn. But before they did that, they needed a warrant. So they went back to the house on Willow Street and waited for the warrant to arrive. It was a trapdoor that led to a secret underground tunnel. The police couldn't believe what they were seeing. They decided to follow the tunnel to see where it led. When it arrived, the police searched the basement, and they found something that made them sick to their stomachs. Who would have a secret underground tunnel leading from their basement? And that's when they saw it. There were several bodies lying in the room. The tunnel was dark and dank, and the air was thick with the smell of decay. As the police made their way through the tunnel, they saw a faint light in the distance. They followed the light, and it led them to a small room. The police were shocked. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. How could someone be so cruel? The police quickly got to work. They took pictures of the scene and they tried to identify the bodies. The police were relieved to finally know what had happened to them. The bodies were badly decomposed, so it was difficult to tell who they were. But eventually they were able to identify them. The police began searching for the person responsible for the murders. It turned out that the bodies belonged to 3 missing persons. The person who had called the police was also nowhere to be found. But they were also angry. How could someone do this to these innocent people? An anonymous tip came in and it led the police to a small town in Texas. They interviewed everyone on Willow Street, but no one had seen anything. They had no leads, and they didn't know where to start. But they weren't about to give up. The police were hopeful that they were finally on the right track. The police were stumped. The case went cold, but the police never forgot about the victims. He was the prime suspect in the Willow Street murders. They kept searching for clues, and they never lost hope that they would find the killer. Years passed and the police were no closer to solving the case. The families of the victims had given up hope. They couldn't believe that they had been so close to catching the killer, and yet he had slipped through their fingers. They didn't think that the police would ever find the person responsible for their loved ones' deaths. But then, out of nowhere, the police got a break in the case. The police were excited. They had a lead, and they were determined to follow it up. When they arrived in Texas, the police interviewed several people, and they were able to get a description of the killer. He was a drifter who had been living in the area for several months. But when they returned to Willow Street, they found out that the killer had already been arrested. It turns out that he had been arrested for a minor crime, and when the police ran his name through the system, they found out who he was. The police were shocked. He then buried the bodies in a shallow grave in the small room at the end of the tunnel. But they were determined to bring him to justice. The killer was brought back to Willow Street, and he was charged with the murders. He said that he had seen them, and in a fit of rage, he had killed them. He said that he had dug the tunnel so that he could escape from the police. He confessed to the crimes, and he was sentenced to life in prison. They had never imagined that he had been planning to blow up the house. The families of the victims were finally able to get some closure. They didn't know how long the killer had been free, but they were grateful that he was finally behind bars. The police thanked God that he had changed his mind. And if you like this video, be sure to check out my others. Thanks for watching. He said that he had snapped and that he had killed his wife and 2 daughters. The police were also grateful that the case was finally over. It had been a long and difficult investigation, but they had finally brought a killer to justice. So what exactly is the connection between the murders and the secret underground tunnel? Well, as it turns out, the killer used the tunnel to dispose of the bodies. He would drag the bodies down the trapdoor in the basement and then through the tunnel. The police were able to discover this because they found some bones in the grave that were not human. The killer had used the tunnel to dispose of the bodies of his dogs, which had died. This is what ultimately led the police to the discovery of the bodies of the missing persons. As for the killer, he was interviewed by the police, and he revealed why he had killed. He then confessed to killing the 2 men who had gone missing after leaving their homes to go for a run. The killer was then asked why he had buried the bodies in the tunnel. He said that he had planned to fill the tunnel with explosives and blow up the house, but he had changed his mind at the last minute. The police were shocked by what the killer had said. If he had done that, then the chances of finding the bodies would have been slim to none. The case of the Willow Street murders is one of the most mysterious and disturbing cases in recent history. The killer's motive for killing is still unknown, and the discovery of the bodies in the secret underground tunnel is nothing short of amazing. What do you think about this case? Let me know in the comments below.